Hello guys, and now we are going to see about the variations that are involved in this case Scheveningen opening. And let's look at this is the beginning initial position of the Scheveningen variation. And here on the sixth move, if white plays f4, then it is called the uh, f4 Tal variation, and it was introduced by Tal. And next there is bishop to c4, and this is called the Fischer-Sozin attack with bishop c4. And the next other move is g4, and this is called the Kias attack. And the next is bishop to e3, bishop to e3. This it's called the English attack. And the classical variation is bishop to e2. So these are the 5 variations that come in Scheveningen. And now let's see the first about the f4 variation. The f4 variation, and after f4, for people whose repertoire includes the open Sicilian with white but don't want to learn the rims of theory, this move is a sensible choice. Even John Nunn advocated this move in beating the Sicilian. And you can even see in Wikipedia that this move is quoted as the Tal variation. And after this a6 by black, and black hopes to return the game to Najdorf territory. Here I learned through my painful experience that the immediate knight to c6 allows white a very interesting setup with which he can try and storm black's position immediately. Now then after bishop to e3, now bishop to e7, and queen to f3. Not messing around, white intends to start operations on the d file as soon as possible with after long castling, and also keeps the g4 g5 thrust on the cards. A little more hidden but no less dangerous is the idea to put pressure on the point e6 with knight takes c6 followed by bishop to c4 and pushing f5. This move has been dubbed the Boy variation after the Belgian champion Jeff Boy. Here the attempt to hit back in the center right away with e5 can be met by knight takes c6, now b takes c6 and f5. Now black has several tries. Now he can either go d5, free. This move tries to free black's game, but there's a nasty crosspin after e takes d5, c takes d5, and long castles, and bishop to b7, and bishop to c4 here. This is one of the ways after putting f5 by white, black can play. And the other thing which black can do is rook to b8. This would be a clever way to set up d5 move uh, and avoid the earlier line which I showed. If white did not also have a precise order at his disposal. Now, bishop to c4 can be played, and then next white can try after f5. White can also try queen to a5. And then now bishop to c4. Bishop to c4. Here both sides will connect their rooks on the same move, following the natural. Bishop to b7. Bishop to b7. Bishop to b7. Then long castles by white and short castles by black. So this is one of the, after e5 all this happens if black plays e5. So next let's see what if he doesn't play e5, what would be the variation. On the 8th move he can try e5, or now he can even try, there is an option of castling. Now after castling, white castles long and queen to c7, then g4. One should be aware that this move implies a pawn sacrifice. After knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, e5, and then f2, f takes e5. After f takes e5, f takes e5. There is one of white's tactical points come in the line after bishop takes g4 and queen g3. Queen g3, then d takes e5, and bishop takes e5. Now queen to c5, bishop takes f6, bishop takes f6, and rook to d5, rook to d5, and queen to c8, and rook to g1, bishop to e6, and e5 here. And after bishop takes d5, and there is knight takes d5. White gains decisive material here. If at all here, instead of d takes e5, bishop takes d1, then e takes f6, bishop takes f6. This wins for white. if at all here. Okay. After f takes e5, there is also, instead of bishop takes g4, there is d takes e5, and now queen g3, knight takes g4, now knight to d5, and white had good chances. So, so I just wanted you to show these variations. So I showed all this. So all these variations happen because of the immediate knight to c6 instead of a6. So it is so to avoid all this, you can go with a6. Now next, after the a6, queen to f3. It turns out that white is too late if he starts with bishop e3. Black gets exactly enough time to put his bishop on b7 to oppose the queen on the long diagonal. So he chooses this move order. It took a while for people to understand that bishop e3 is not good way to seek advantage for white, uh, because after bishop to e3 he answers with the immediate b5. So to meet queen f3 with bishop b7, and now black has his fair share of tactics along the long diagonal. Here after bishop to d3, knight bd7, and g4, and here b4. After b4, knight c2 e2, and then knight c5, and then knight to g3, and rook to c8, giving extra protection to the c5 knight. Now g5, knight fd7, now h4, e5. This is the key idea. Black now obtains the e5 square for one of his knights. White now more or less has to trade his dark squared bishop off. Now after knight b3, he takes f4, bishop takes f4, there is knight to e6. Of course, on strategic grounds, this knight is worth more than the one on the b3. And now white continued with the knight to f5. Black is also doing excellently. If white chooses to give up other bishop instead, uh, Knight to f5 if at all. White plays bishop to e3, then knight e5, queen to e2, knight takes d3, c takes d3, d5. Here after knight f5 and knight takes f4, queen takes f4, knight to e5. With this extremely powerful knight on e5, black now holds the trumps in the position, but later he fell into difficulties. And so after bishop e3 instead of queen f3, black will go in this way, putting his bishop on the long diagonal. So let's see. Before putting bishop e3, white should go queen f3, and now queen to b6. The queen will not stay here, but black is rather just trying to drive the d4 knight back to a worse square. Then he will retreat the queen to c7 and continue with b5, so as to meet the usual tactic of e5 with the simple bishop b7. Now white normally responds with knight b3. White can also opt this mutual loss of tempo with a3 here, which is an interesting idea. White keeps a knight central post through tactics. Apparently it was Grandmaster Quinteros who first played this idea. The point is that if at all queen takes d4, then bishop e3 traps the queen. So there is no square for the queen to escape. So the only desperate move is queen takes c3 check and b takes c3 and bishop to d7. And here it is claimed that black's version was playable, but this is not a good idea. So here queen takes d4 would be a blunder. So knight here knight c6, knight takes c6, and then b takes c6, b3. Now that black has the b file instead of the c file, it doesn't matter so much if the c3 knight is briefly vulnerable. The bishop will be well situated on b2, and white intends to castle long, and here after bishop to b7, bishop to b2, now d5, long castles. This move isn't good, but white must almost play it anyway, otherwise his concept makes no sense. Now queen to a5, e5, knight to d7, and Knight a4, queen to c7. Black quickly gained the upper hand because the white king is rather unsafe. And so after, instead of a3, it is better to go knight b6. Knight b3. Now queen to c7. Now g4. And white is consistent with his plan. Now b5. Now g5. Knight fd7. Here b4 will not work well. And now bishop to e3. Here various players have tried almost all possible moves and motives of a kingside attack. For instance, here bishop to d3, bishop to b7, and now a switch of diagonal, queen to h3 with the threat of g6. In most cases, sharp positions arise in which black is not worse. After bishop e3, now knight to b6, long castles, knight 8 d7, now queen to h3, now b4, and knight to e2, and knight to c4. After black executes the basically forced trade of this knight for the opponent's e3 bishop, he doesn't really have any problems. So this is just an introduction about the various variations in the opening phase of the game. This is the Tal variation with the f4 move on 6th move. So we will be looking at a model game in my next video. Thank you all.